Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's video we're going to be talking about top 5 skilled champions in Marvel Concept of Champions in December 2019. Now this is kind of like a follow-up series. I started them out in June. I did a top 5 list of each class back in June, but since then we have had plenty of new champions added to the game, plenty of new content added to the game, plenty of meta changes, so on and so forth. So I definitely think it's a good time for a rehash. And before I actually get to the part of skilled champions, I wanted to quickly mention my top 5 tech video, which I released yesterday, and how many people got absolutely triggered by the fact that I did not include Starting Hand Spider-Man and quickly jumped his defense. And to be absolutely fair, I absolutely saw that coming because he is a huge fan favorite. But here's the thing, it's my opinion, I still stick by it. I take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody. I still don't want to put him in a top 5, no matter what you can do, and that is the point. That's my opinion. You are welcome to have your opinion. You are welcome to express your opinion. What you're not welcome to do is cry about it like a baby. Either way, we are going to move on to the actual video or the skill champions, so we can quickly jump in a champions list over here, filter out all the skills, sorted by hero rating, and we can start off by spot number 5. And spot number 5 currently I have placed in Spider-Man stealth suit. Now, it comes to no surprise that Spider-Mans really are not my favorite bunch of heroes in this game, largely because by their lack of sustainability, small health pools, low block proficiencies, and just kind of squishy nature of them. But at the same time, I have definitely come to appreciate the versatility and the feel of this character, and the fact remains that he's one of the very few champions in the game that does have access to slow, and his slow is also a slightly upgraded version that also protects you from missing the hits. So that slow is what kind of makes him for me to be a really useful champion, especially when it comes to stopping auto block and things of that kind of nature. Now when it comes to being an evade counter, he really isn't the most practical champion in a sense, just because in order to apply that slow debuff fairly efficiently, you do need to land a full hit combo, and if opponents have a chance to evade your attacks, quite often they will simply evade, and you're not going to get to complete your combo, and you're not going to get to apply your slow. So that can be quite tricky, and you can bypass it with level 2, but then again it's quite slow build up. And I think then in that case, kind of like Spider-Gwen and She-Hulk apply that slow much better. But at the same time, obviously he has quite a bit of damage output, some other utility, and so on and so forth. So I think he's kind of well deserving to kick off our today's list. And yeah, I definitely wasn't a big fan of this guy at first. I'm slowly kind of starting to warm up, and this guy now I have him at rank 3. I'm starting to use him a bit more in my like uncollected exploration, so on and so forth. And I can definitely see that he has his use. He can put in work. He is not somebody that screams to me kind of like top contender for the top tier list, but at the same time I can definitely appreciate the relatively high damage output with slow and skill class. I believe he's like the only champion who has that slow mechanic, and that is extremely valuable. If he had like the better duration on his end rate, or that end rate would be kind of like a better mechanic altogether, I would probably value him even quite a bit higher. But as it is, he realistically, even if it says he has 3 pre-fight abilities, he really has just the one that you use, because a default one, the one that plays vulnerability, is basically the one that does more damage, and that kind of should be like his base ability. That is the one you use in most fights, and if you sacrifice that extra bit of damage, you can apply slow, which could be his pre-fight ability. That end rate's absolutely garbage, and in my opinion, nobody ever really uses it. But that being said, solid damage output, quite interesting to play quirky combo counts and stuff like that, which can be useful in a sense as well when dealing with stuff like Voids or some other champions. So yeah, I think he fits fairly well in the list. I think he is deserving of 5th best skill champion in the game currently. And with that, we are going to move on to spot number 4 in my opinion. And in spot number 4, it is going to be Thrasher. Now, Thrasher, again, I get that many people don't like him. I get that he's one of those champions where you kind of have to take a leap of faith, because if you want to use this guy to max out his abilities, you have to invest a lot in him. You have to put all of the 6 stones in him, take him up to the max sig to get his furies pumped up, because that signature ability is so important, and therefore he's not a great 6-star, let's say, to pull, so on and so forth. But at the same time, this guy unsuspectingly just keeps doing more and more for me, and he's actually one of kind of like the most used champions on my roster. That is another video I'm going to be trying to record later today, kind of like trying to go through the champions I use most often, kind of like day to day and so on and so forth. But either way, this guy is absolutely fantastic for dealing with any and all sorts of evades, because all of his skateboard hits have true accuracy, so you pretty much never have to worry about the evade if you slightly modify your playstyle. Also, he has access to talent, which is great. Now in Act 6, more and more present, we have these pleasure to burn nodes, and also the node that does the same thing Acid Wash basically does, just with shock. So he has easy access to shock, he has easy access to incinerate. Disorient is quite useful to be able to bypass safeguard and things of that kind of nature. And there is definitely quite a bit going on with this guy, even though he's like very simple in his base of what you want to do, and once you have had a bit of practice with it, he's actually really simple to run. And another thing I definitely have to mention, that he's extremely tanky. He can take a hit, he can take a blocked hit, and the fact that he has the power gain below bar power means that you can set up quickly, and he's really fluid in the terms of kind of like general gameplay and playability. And he's actually one of my AQ heroes, because in Alliance Quest he's able of doing incinerate lanes, freezer burn lanes, and then he also can do buffed up. He can deal with Spider-Verse champions who have like mega chance of evading stuff, and more often than not, actually, he pretty much does a lot for me in Alliance Quest, and he's always a solid option to bring no matter which week, which variation I kind of have to do. So he's, yeah, one of my AQ staples, and he also has been useful quite a bit in pretty much all of the other content. So I definitely do like this guy. I use him a lot, value him highly, because of how much he has done for me, and how much how much work he has put in for my account and puts in day to day. As you can see, even now he is currently in Alliance Quest as well. And yeah, so I am personally, in my opinion, placing Night Thrasher spot number 4. Now spot number 3 is still going to go to Blade, and the thing is simple. I was kind of thinking of putting Night Thrasher even in spot number 3, but I'll let Blade keep it for now, because even though he doesn't really fit the lanes that I do in AQ, you can still see him present in AQ map 7 as well at times, as well as occasionally he still manages to stroll into a W attack. And the fact of the matter is, there are still really many great matchups for him, and another reason why I think he kind of retains his spot number 3 currently is because we are getting more Mystic champions. There are quite few new Mystic champions in the game, and Blade obviously loves Mystics because he can deal with them extremely easily. And all in all, I think although he isn't the kind of like most exciting hero to have and play anymore like he once was, he kind of, with his danger sensibility and the fact that the Mystic class is going to keep expanding, the fact that there are going to be more and more villains coming to the game, he's going to always retain a relatively decent level of usefulness. And the facts of the matter are that he has excellent bleed, excellent power gain, excellent regen, and that is useful in itself. Combined with danger sense, he still can carry you through quite a bit of content. He might not be looked at as a luxury as he once was, because before it was, oh, if you have Blade you have no problems in the game. No, currently if you have Blade, then he may help you sort some problems out, but he's not your main problem solver like Ghost or Quake is currently in the game, or even Chorus or Omega. But he can still pull his weight, he can still do a fair amount of, and his intended purpose, I suppose. At the same time, I can definitely say I do not use him nowhere near as much as I do, for instance, Night Thrasher. But that being said, I still think he is valuable enough to be in top 3 skill champions list. If there would be such thing as like Hall of Fame, obviously, where we have pre-nerf Thor, pre-nerf Scarlet Witch, then I think at some point this champion would have already earned a spot in Hall of Fame. But as a veteran champion of MCOC, I still think he still packs a punch and can compete with the younger, newer release champions fairly well. And yeah, so I'm definitely still happy to have him. He's good to have as an option. And for the last month or so, I've been playing less Suicide Masteries, and obviously that kind of like opens up the blade a bit more, and that has changed my outlook on some champions, definitely. And that has helped me realize how great Hyperion, for instance, is, even more so than I did before. But that is going to be left for another video, where we're probably gonna trigger a bunch more people when it comes to Cosmic class. But back to the skill class video. So Blade is my personal number 3 still. Possibly he's gonna get edged out by Night Thrasher very soon. And now that leaves us with the top 2. And this is one of the most frequent questions that I get asked. Nick Fury or Aegon? And both are fantastic. Both are extremely different. And for me personally, I cannot deny how much work Aegon has put in Act 6 later chapters. He's an absolute insane beast. He's extremely versatile. Once you get the couple of ramp-up fights in, you're good, you're kind of golden. He does put in so much work, and he's pretty much one of the very few champions in the game that can basically become debuff immune, because so long as you can keep hitting the opponent, you can shrug off all of the debuffs, no matter what kind they are. Obviously, his damage can be incredibly insane. He's by far the best option for Labyrinth of Legends. I absolutely love this guy, but the problem is that I love Nick Fury more, and I use him more, and he definitely is more so present for me playing the game. Now Aegon, once again, has put in a lot of work in 6.2. How him maxed out, he can do Labyrinth basically for free. He does a lot in 6.3. But the one kind of like problem with Aegon, in my opinion, is, and the one thing that I really don't like in several different champion designs, because he's one of those egoistical champions that when you bring him to your questing team, it kind of dictates that any fight where you can use him, you kind of have to in order to ramp him up, in order to make him stronger, especially if you kind of intend to use him for a boss fight. So picture that, for instance, if you need to use Aegon for a boss in any quest, then you need to make sure that you have had plenty of fights before that with Aegon in order to ramp him up to at least somewhat decent standard. And despite what everybody says, no, he doesn't need 700 combo to begin with. He's plenty good. If he has like 150 combo carried over, then he was already kind of like dealing crazy damage, critting plenty enough, has that true accuracy, so on and so forth. But at the same time, you have to get those 150 hits somewhere. And the way, for instance, 6.3 was designed was in a manner that if the champion didn't fit a specific requirement in order to clear a lane, you didn't have a single fight you could realistically do. So for instance, there was entire lane of Cultra Observer. These lanes were extremely made so specific that there was a lot obviously that Aegon can do, and then you also cannot bring him in for a single fight on that lane, or for instance maybe a boss fight, because you do not have a chance to ramp him up. And that still, no matter how I twist and turn it in my head, is quite a big of weakness, because on paper, yes, he's definitely the most dominant, perhaps even the best champion in the game once he's ramped up, but the ability to ramp him up is always conditional, because let's face it, in the first fight he can be a bit of a wiener, he can take his time, and with the way newer nodes and newer map designs have been laid out for us, we typically do not have these warm-up fights, we typically do not have these ramp-up fights, and that kind of costs a lot of points in my love for Aegon. Now, I still use him a lot. I definitely am well aware of what he can do and what kind of value he can bring to your team, and the fact that he's quite easy to be plugged in anywhere as well, because he doesn't really require any synergies, and that's all fantastic. But at the same time, he's a bit of an attention hog. He kind of dictates that you need to use him throughout the quest if you want to kind of capitalize on his abilities later on. He also really often depends on being able to start off. For instance, let's say Biohazard, right? You have a full lane of Biohazard, and if you do not have any combo on Aegon already, he's likely gonna die or almost gonna die while you're clearing the first fight in Biohazard. Now, if you had him at combo 50 even or 70, he would clear that Biohazard with little to no problems because he would constantly keep shrugging everything off. So that is the downfall and the weakness of Aegon. At the same point, when you are able to avoid that kind of situations, he's just an absolute beast. Once you get him to 100 hit combo, 150 hit combo, he's insane. I absolutely love him, but he is in spot number 2 for me, and that leaves me with spot number 1 champion in skill class, which is going to be Nick Fury. And now, I have spoken about Nick Fury quite a lot, as well as I nominated him as my personal best champion released in 2019, and I still stand by it, because even before we approach everything and anything he brings to the table in a fight with his own abilities, we definitely have to talk about his synergies, which have completely kind of changed the way you are able to play suicides, which have completely changed the way many other champions who might be trickier to play have all of this extra safety net. And he synergized with a champion like Quake that I naturally love. I think Quake is the best champion in the game, hands down. I use her a lot everywhere. My only problem with Quake is pretty much that I don't have more Quakes that I can use in AQAW and questing at the same time. And so they make such a strong kind of power couple to begin with, and then you can build out on it. You can add the gold pool, which is in my opinion quite underrated champion and can pull his weight as well. And when you have this trio active on your questing team, you can plug in 2 different champions who may not be suicide friendly, but all of a sudden they are. Or even if they are somewhat suicide friendly champions, all of a sudden they have this extra regen that gives you so much more sustainability. And that is my kind of like pretty much number 1 way of tackling most of the difficult content that has been coming out in 6.2 and 6.3. I constantly kind of like rely on Nick Fury, Quake, Gold Pool, and then plug in whatever else is needed, whether it's Ghost, whether it's just before mentioned Aegon. Aegon also like really loves this synergy trio, and it makes Aegon so much better to use because he gets a bit of heal at the beginning of every fight, and he shrugs off the remaining debuff, and at the same time he has the weight charges to protect him if you would lose your combo. And yeah, that synergy whole setup, the kind of like system he can bring in place with champion like Quake, who I think is pretty much fantastic to have everywhere where you go. And even in Labyrinth I have used Quake, and I have gotten some magic solos, some unstoppable Colossus solos, how like, I don't know, 2-shotted Electro or Juggernaut with Quake. So even though it does take time, it's still definitely doable. And yeah, but that's the point, because those synergies are such a massive side of Nick Fury and such a massive influence with him as a character that I definitely love him for that already. And then the fact itself that Nick Fury is such a crazy good champion himself. So he can spam bleeds for days. He can basically ignore auto block champions, and even if they have parry active, he's not gonna get stunned, but instead of getting stunned, he's gonna place a bleed on opponent. He can purify all debuffs whenever you knock down the opponent. He can become completely unblockable. He can ignore a weight, and his hits cannot miss, and miss is becoming more and more present mechanic. Now we have Guillotine 2099 that phases, we have Ebony Maw where you can miss, we have Tunnel Vision, which is an ever-present node, we have Invisible Woman, which is a tricky Alliance War boss that Nick Fury absolutely destroys in a matter of seconds. and that damage once you enter real Nick Fury phase is also something to behold to. And even in kind of like Realm of Legends, you can barely open up a maxed out Nick Fury, so because those 500 HP just go like that. The hit counts might not be the smallest ones because level 1s are multi-hit, and you typically want to drop like 2 level 1s to build up your tactical charges and go fully unblockable, and that pretty much automatically brings you to like 20 hits plus. But at the same time, as soon as that's done, everything just absolutely drops and melts. And I absolutely love the guy. He is one of my most used champions. I have maxed out 5-star, I have a rank 2 6-star, and I actually use both of them pretty much non-stop constantly, with neither of them going in Alliance War defense. So typically one of them is pretty much always tied up in Alliance War attack, where either he provides a good synergy or he's a counter to a boss or a mini boss, and then the other one either goes to AQ or always goes in questing because he's so good. And yeah, so for me, the best skill champion currently in the game is Nick Fury. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Aegon. He can be the GOAT. When he's ramped up, he's probably the best champion in the game. But still, the fact that ramp up is kind of like so vital, and if he isn't ramped up, he loses so much of that momentum going in the fight. It's quite unfortunate, but at the same time, it's definitely extremely well designed champion. I think both of them are extremely well designed, but for me, Nick Fury kind of like definitely fills my needs, I suppose, much more, because he synergizes with great champions. He makes everybody on my team better, and at the same time, he does put in so much work himself, absolutely shredding through the quests and fights by himself. And yeah, therefore, I do believe that Nick Fury is the best skill champion currently in the game. And once again, a standard disclaimer. This is my opinion. If you have a different opinion, you are more than welcome to share it. You are more than welcome to leave a comment with what you would change. And just try and not be a dickhead about it. Don't have to act like a little child if you didn't have your champion mentioned here. And that just reminded me, a few definitely noteworthy champions that I still love in skill class are first and foremost Killmonger. I still think Killmonger is a real stud of a champion, and depending what kind of champions you mainly rely on, he definitely might be kind of like worth taking up much more than, for instance, maybe Blade or Nick Fury even, because if you constantly play like Sabretooth or Void, and those are kind of like the big power champions of your playstyle, of your game, then I think having fully ranked up Killmonger definitely will be extremely important and great for your account. It's just the fact that I am not particularly big on playing Void or Killmonger, and therefore, Void or Sabretooth, and therefore I haven't invested in my Killmonger. But should that be the case other way around, I would definitely rank up my Killmonger as well. I absolutely love using this guy. Now, he's not the most versatile champion, but his damage is great. He's fun to play. He can put in quite a bit of work, and he has some insane reach, and he can do kind of like step backs on pretty much every champion. Ronin can definitely be useful. Kind of wish he was a bit better. He has a lot of little good bits of utility, but unfortunately he's more so just kind of like fun and occasionally useful, I suppose. But if you're a newer and progressing player, he's definitely somebody that can grab your attention as being a great champion. And Taskmaster, I think Taskmaster in fact is a bit of an unsung hero of a skill class. I think he's great to use. I think now that he's finally getting fixed, and his ability accuracy reduction can completely shut down all opponents' abilities, it's also great. Plus, if you have ranked him up higher, he has fairly good damage output, and I do like this guy quite a bit as well. And obviously there's Gwenpool and a chunk of other champions. But this has been my list. So again, to go over it, Stealth Suit Spider-Man as a 5th, Night Thrasher as number 4, Blade as number 3, Aegon as number 2, and Nick Fury as the best skill champion in the game currently, in my personal opinion. Yeah, that will do for today's video. I have kept you guys long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.